We'll bring the April Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. All our members are here. So if you'll stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move the agenda.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is discussion of the minutes and approval of the minutes from the March 19th, 2022. I will abstain from any comment on that. Was not here.
Move the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Scott, you're up for, first of all, Susan, I'll ask Susan, anything on the non-residential design review committee?
We did not have a meeting last month on it, and we will have one for a new sign for Michael, I think it's Orleans photography shop down on First Street next month.
Thank you. Scott, comments, updates on the town council meeting?
So there was no town council meeting for April, no regular town council meeting on account of Easter, but we did have a special hearing the week before to get public comment on the 3 ordinances that are now before the council. So that's the change to the non-residential design review committee, which would not require the town council's liaison to this commission to sit on that committee, and to the lot coverage, so the definitions in the lot coverage and the lot coverage. The public comment was overwhelmingly positive. The only questions we had, some residents were worried that the new ordinance would require them to tear out old driveways before they were ready to tear them out. We allayed those concerns, but otherwise I think the commentary was positive.
Thank you. Are there any comments to be made by, I'm sorry, any comments to be made by the members of the Planning Commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'd want to thank the town of Bethany Beach for presenting me with a pair of soil aerating sandals. For
Well, you
those,
get that, you have one meeting you handle and they give you shoes with spikes.
for those that may be listening, I hope it's not too much inside baseball, but we had a discussion about the town's gravel parking lot, and I suggested that if everyone put on these aerating sandals, we could break the hard pack underneath it to allow for draining. So I have to report to the town manager. I had a mechanized plan to do this, which involved a tractor, a farmer's tractor and a big auger to go around, but they said that not until I've done my duty will the town consider that. Anyway, I want to thank them for this fine pair of... Thank you for your previous service. I missed that part of it. The town of Bethany Beach. Please see Cliff Gravier at your earliest convenience to schedule times for you to aerate the parking lot next to the Blue Crab restaurant.
And we've notified the EMTs when you're gonna do that, John. Thank you. Are there any other comments?
They got your size right?
On that subject, Cliff and the town is still looking into options for the parking lot. So just a brief update on that. No, it turns out that pervious concrete's even more expensive than the so that I think they're actively looking at other options still.
Well, actually, I know I'm beating a dead horse, ladies and gentlemen, but if you were, in fact, to take a tractor with an auger, like a fence post digger, and put 4 or 6 penetrations through it, you probably could, in fact, put macadam there with drains that would allow the town to meet its desire to, but also be in the spirit of what may be coming in terms of what we're asking of other, the residents if that should pass. And so I think there are some other options that would not cost the town a lot of money, but still allow it to be macadamed. Anyway, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to also announce that we're pleased to have the mayor here. And also, the vice mayor just walked in, and we're pleased to have him also. Thank you. Are there any public comments? We have the mayor and the vice mayor. Any comments? No comments, okay. We do, that's a comment. We don't have a license, so we're just gonna have to wait. We have, believe it or not, no new business, but we do have 2 items under old business. The first item we'll discuss is the Knox plants and tree replacement. I wasn't here last time, so I don't know who's in charge of that right now. Who's gonna, anybody want to start to report on that?
I'll start.
Okay, Susan, thank you.
And I'll pass this down. I don't know if, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just for informational. We do have a tree ordinance on the books. This is it. And I'm bringing this up because it really only relates to when we do subdivisions at this point. But it has some pretty good definitions in it and everything. And the reason it kind of came to my attention, because our subdivision chapter doesn't connect with this other chapter on trees. There's no mention of it. When you're applying for any kind of subdivision, it doesn't state that you then have to go back to this ordinance as well, to this chapter. And this came up because we have a minor subdivision coming up
In May.
next month. And they jumped the gun and took down all the trees on the property and cleared it completely, much to a lot of people's disappointment. So that's when we started looking through the code and found this section does not differentiate between minor and major subdivisions. So it actually, in my opinion, refers to this part as well, and is something that I wanted you to be aware of and to look through this chapter and maybe see how they could have done it better, or if there's something they might need to do for this minor subdivision. But I think it's also a good chapter to look at, to add to for individual lots.
Did they violate any,
They did. There is another part of the code that states that before you do any work, in the way that I read the code, you're supposed to have your building permit before you do any work on a site. And 2, you're supposed to give the building inspector 24 hours notice before you do any work on a site. And they did not do that, and they have been cited on that issue.
okay. John?
No, that was going to be my
Oh,
question,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Yes, Kathy?
Susan, is there any way of just, what is on the books now for when you take trees down to do
That's
what
it.
they're doing?
That is what I
This is it,
just
what I'm
handed
looking
you,
at.
is all that we have right now. And it refers to, and we did go through this when we looked at Addie Cooper. I remember we had a plan of what trees were there, which ones might be saved. That was submitted, and that was the only major subdivision we've actually worked on to date. The PRD that was worked on, there weren't any trees there to do anything with. But the Addie Cooper property has quite a few. This is just one that came up because it's minor subdivision, and there were quite a few nice trees on it. It was quite a lovely.
You haven't seen it, but, because you were speaking, but I did take it. It's near my neighborhood, and everybody was going nuts about it, and I did.
Yeah, you can go on, and they were like, well, what do, we can't count them now, but yes, you can. You can go on Google Earth, and you can see
Yeah.
all the trees that were on the lot prior to them taking everything down.
What are the fines associated with that?
For taking them down, nothing, not at this point. What we have is, well, it's going to come as, it's going to be something I think needs to be addressed when they come for the minor subdivision. But the fines that, we have them, I guess, going before the Alderman Court for not giving notice.
That's it?
Well, they didn't have a permit and they didn't give notice. Yeah, that I know I can go forward with, without a hitch.
What would be the maximum fine they could receive on that?
I believe it's $500 per lot. So right now, it's a $1,500 fine.
That's enough.
Susan, I'm just skimming through this quickly, but the replacement requirements as part of this language, if they were to follow this, still requires some sort of replenishment as
Yeah.
part of the development, right?
Correct.
Okay.
John?
Mr. Chairman, this is the first that I've read this particular provision even closely, but in here it talks about a developer's performance bond that in an amount equal to $500 times the number of replacement trees. Okay? A performance bond. Now, they didn't.
I think in some ways, a lot of this, and it doesn't state it, but it relates to major subdivisions where they'll be doing major site improvements. But I think it's still important for this case coming up because it doesn't really specify. But I know there's some stuff in there that I don't know how it actually would relate to this.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if anyone is listening in, but the commission has a picture from that site of downed trees, big trees. And my rough count is there's at least 13 of them. There may be more, and I'm not sure. But, so this wasn't just taking down one or two trees. And I may be getting ahead of myself, Susan, but there's clearly been a violation of some provisions, whether it was large subdivision, small subdivision. You're supposed to have gotten permission, and in the case of any of the subdivisions that, in my experience, that we've dealt with here, part of that application included a tree plan, what you were going to take down and what you were going to replace. And none of that has happened, as best as I know. And now, next month, we're going to have this application come for us for consideration. And I've raised the question as to whether it is even appropriate for that to come before us when we have this kind of activity. And I don't know the answer to that.
I agree with you, but And I do. I think they should have done, but the problem that we have right now is, and they jumped the gun, there's no doubt about that, is that our subdivision section doesn't tell you that you have to submit that. It's only when you go to the chapter on trees. And so it wasn't something that, and you know, my fault, that I was looking for, because it doesn't say it's required in there until you go to the other chapter. So, yes, they shouldn't have done this. Yes, they have to do, in my opinion, something now. I would 100% agree with you. And we need to put something in there that connects those two chapters a little better. But at this point, I think from Google Earth, we could probably piece together, you can go down the block and pick where all these, and a lot of them are not in what would be the footprint of a house.
Yeah, Susan, I'm a little ticked of what happened here. Ignorance is no excuse on something like this.
I agree.
Is this a new developer that has never been here before? It's still no excuse, I'm just wondering.
No,
Okay.
no,
So
and it's not a new problem
Right.
for this
My second
particular.
question is, I would like to see, and this is a month premature, but instead of delaying any action on their suggestion, I would like them, not us, them, because you've got more things to do than worry about showing me what they've done, them to show us what it was, what it is, and what their resolution of it is. Just before we even, I want that as part of the package that they submit for approval. And since people, this is a little premature because they're not due until next month, those items will have to be addressed for me to do much of anything, even to hear it by the commission. I think I probably have a lot of the commissioners' agreement on that, but they've done something they shouldn't have done. And one of the things I used to do in my previous life was people would go ahead and do something and say, oh, mea culpa. And then they just walk on their way. It's easier to ask for, yeah. So I don't subscribe to that. And there's got to be a reaction to their action. So if you'd let them know that before they come in, they're going to have to bring in information that shows us what it was. And I would like to be able to put it up on the screen so that if the people that are watching any discussion we have would be in that form so they can actually see it. Because, we just have a picture here that Kathy took. Nobody can see it. And the town needs to see it.
Yeah.
So,
I can notify them that the planning commission would like that information.
we need that information as opposed to like.
Well-
We want it, John?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to that. Not only do we want the information, but we expect a representative from the applicant on behalf of the applicant to be here to explain things. It's not just a matter of submission of some documents.
I think the applicants have to be here, don't they, for
Well,
that? Yeah, a representative.
John, I
Right.
think, is asking for more than the rep, right? You're asking for the applicant?
well, somebody who can answer some questions.
Oh, all right, well, the rep.
It's not just, I don't want to just hear from the owner saying, well, I don't know what happened here. I'm sorry. I mean, this is,
Yeah,
I'll hold my tongue as to what my view is, but I think it's representative of,
the owner and the applicant are the same.
Good.
It's one of those where the contractor purchases it's a lot and house package. So they purchase it first, and then somebody buys the whole thing from them.
Good. Scott, did you have a?
Yeah, I have used to live on the street, so I know the lot well. I understand the impact that doing something like this has on the character of that street and that neighborhood. So I share everyone's frustrations. Just to make everyone more frustrated, if this wasn't a subdivision, if it was a single family lot, they could do this, exactly that, without impunity. With impunity? With impunity. Thank you. So there's no no restriction against that at all on a single lot. So they could right now abandon the idea of subdividing it, and it's just they cleared a lot. So I think that just highlights for everyone here the issue that needs to be addressed. So I think there's some good language in this chapter, just skimming it, about what really should have happened on any subdivision, and maybe it should be applied to minor subdivisions, not just major subdivisions. And something like this should come before the Planning and Zoning Commission with a plan, a tree protection plan and a tree replacement plan prior to approval. But I think we also need to, as efficiently as possible, adopt some of these same protections for single-family residential lots, because this is going to continue to happen. You see it happening all throughout Sussex County. The mayor has written a letter to the county council to try to help address that issue throughout the county. But we need to fix this now, I think.
Well, I agree. Very good comment. Thanks, Scott. John?
Mr. Chairman, following up, Scott, if this was a single lot, Susan, before they removed any of the trees, though, you normally would have the building permit, right? When reviewing that for a building permit, do you have any discretion or authority to talk to them about what trees are taken down and all? I'm talking about the hypothetical here so that beforehand you and the town would know what was happening, or
No, and
Okay.
Scott is right in that if they had just waited, they could get it subdivided, all the trees are there, and then they could go in and just clear, with just telling me, hey, we're gonna cut down trees. They just have to give me notice. So I think it's really important that we look at this one, because the impact of it was so great on that neighborhood.
And it's two things, right? It's protection and replacement. So you can see in that neighborhood, was one of the last big stands of tall trees in that neighborhood. If you went in there and just built a house and left 4 of the trees there, those trees are more prone to being blown down in a storm, so they become more dangerous. So you can, I don't think we personally should be writing something that prohibits someone from enhancing the safety of their own property. But if that's the route they want to take, there needs to be something in place that requires them to replace those trees.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about here. Go on.
I was going to say, sometimes too, when you're building a house and a tree's there, the tree's going to die anyway because of the way the roots are formed. So I think, yes, Scott, that's a great point, that we'd have to think about where to do the replacements.
I think there's something in there about, there's the footprint of the house where you have to remove the trees. And then there's the rest of the property where they should be categorized, cataloged and determine the caliber of them, the health of them, and whether they need to be taken down or replaced.
Well, I think it's a good discussion that will go on into what Scott was saying. If we approve it or go in that direction, it should be a general, not just on a subdivision. It should be a general individual lot decision, and it should come to you before anything happens, and we need to give you a substantial comment as to how this probably should be reviewed, and, because, I don't want to put on the town staff, I don't want to create a problem where it's, you know, you make the decision, because then everybody just starts arguing. If we tell you parameters that the town is looking for, you can just supply those.
Well, on some of these, then, it could be something as simple as just requiring them to have them located on the survey and have a report on which ones, you know, we're going to, not in the footprint, but all, the rest of them, you know, were there any good, healthy trees that were to remain? And if not, then what are you going to replace it with? And we could just put the onus on the developer or property owner, whoever's building the house, they do it in other towns, safeguard those trees and you know, replace ones that they don't like, or that, you know, maybe block a view or something with something else.
Okay, good, good.
But that could all go in this chapter.
Right.
It doesn't have to just relate to subdivisions. It could relate to trees in general with
Yes, I think.
any kind of development.
Yeah, I think it has to go beyond subdivision. Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay. Susan, I think you're still, Knox,
No, I'm done.
plants and tree, I think is that it?
I don't have anything on noxious this week.
Okay, I will turn to my left, because I know we have some noxious plant people over here.
Sorry, just going back to what we were just talking about, what is our next step for that? For either adjusting the criteria or, I mean, should we try to draft something for next meeting for this group to review? Or how do we make, you know, there's the one obvious change which seems simple, to make a cross-reference between the sections. And
That's something
that's not
that-
really
that-
you know, it's not changing any criteria or code criteria, but some of this other language we started to talk about, I think, in the fall, around the tree regulations and replacement, and so
I think we start to develop this section as a good, solid tree ordinance that relates to all development in the town. So, yeah, and, because you all just got it, I think you need to sort of review it, look at maybe other towns and how they're working it, and then we'll just have to make suggestions and see what we can do.
Do you have a town that you would recommend we look at their,
Well, I know Rehoboth has a pretty strong tree ordinance.
could we get a copy of that?
Sure.
Yeah, I think Rehoboth has one.
That's what I said, yeah.
Rehoboth, yeah.
Yeah, Rehoboth, I think, Rehoboth requires you to replace, so if you cut down those trees, you would have to replace the aggregate diameter of trees on your lot somehow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're
Whoa.
pretty,
Yeah, they're serious about it. And they have, if you are planning, you know, as Susan pointed out, what they should have done is applied for the permit, and in Rehoboth, you have to do that. You have to mark out the trees you're planning to take. I think there's a month-long period for public comment, so your neighbors can walk by. So in this case, like, the neighbors there could have walked by and seen what was happening, and then got the pitchforks and torches out. But, yeah, I'm not saying we necessarily want to go as far as Rehoboth, or maybe we want to go farther, I don't know, but they do have a stringent tree protection policy in place.
I'd like to get that too. I mean, if something's already written and we can look at it if we like it, I have no problem.
I personally don't like parts of that,
That's okay.
that ordinance,
Yeah.
but it's something to look at and
Yeah,
see.
it's the basis.
Well, if we,
what we
yeah,
might
if we
wanna
can get a
add to
copy of
this.
those two things in the next,
Two things?
one mail, we'll discuss it at the next meeting.
I only got one thing. What's my,
Is that the same? I
Just the
thought-
yeah, Rehoboth.
Yeah, the Rehoboth.
okay.
And I agree, there are parts of Rehoboth that are onerous. I mean, I've seen the developer side where it's overly frustrating,
Yeah.
that 30-day period is.
I'll get a copy and I'll just email it to everyone
Yeah.
so that they have it to
Okay.
look at with this one.
John?
Susan, would you be comfortable in annotating whatever you give us, or be prepared to opine on the parts that give you trouble?
Yeah,
It would be helpful, going forward to have a input from you and your staff on if there are parts that we shouldn't focus on, if you will.
I think I'll just send it, and, you know, you can look at the two,
Right.
and then see what might work for the town of Bethany Beach, and you know, what lots are we looking at? You know, there's heavily wooded lots there's some in Turtle Walk still, there's some in Tingle's Addition and back in there. And, you know, how this might, you know, help keep some of these trees when there's development going on. But just to read through it, and then we can sort of say, well, you know, when we talk about it, then I can say, well, this is how that might not work.
Okay.
But that might be better. I'd rather not make opinions until.
Kathy?
Just another quick question, and also I think Scott alluded to it a while back. You probably don't have many instances like this these days, right, where this many trees are taken down from a lot?
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
And it came up here when we talked about replacing trees every time you took one down, because there were some very heavily wooded lots. There's 3 of them in a row in Turtle Walk, where there's 3 houses going up, and they just about took down all of the trees on them to get the house in and to make it easier and do whatever else. But yeah, there were a lot of trees, but they were individual lots.
right. I'll be curious to know if Rehoboth addresses the issue of, you know, if I were going to buy a wooded lot and decide which trees, you know, to thin out some trees or whatever, for whatever reason, I would know, I mean, I know from working with our arborist in the villas, I'll say, gosh, that tree looks like it's a little too close to the building or a little, and he'll go, no, don't take down that tree because the other trees are used to that tree being there and they'll die if you take that one down. And I don't know how owners or their developers would go about making these decisions.
I think the 2 guys next to you will tell you. It's in the
Yeah,
way to take it
I
down,
would,
right?
I would think they would just decide on what looks good or whatever. And I guess I would want to, I don't know, help people make a decision. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I would hope they might look to an arborist for assistance before they would come to you.
Well, you know,
But
it's
I don't guess we can,
That's something
mandate
that
that.
we can actually add if in fact, we do make a change and go through this. You know, your recommendation would be, you want an arborist.
I would certainly
to
say that,
say
based on what
this,
I've
that, or
learned.
the other, which would probably help Susan quite a bit too.
Yeah, I wouldn't know a good one from a bad one in lots of ways.
Susan knows
I don't
different-
even grow anything at home. But I think there must be a way to have them located, have the health of the tree, note, you know, have them submit something that gives us an idea. We won't be perfect all the time, but, you know, maybe something that they have to submit their plan for it and what they're going to keep and, you know, go from there. You have to let them take them down where the house is going to go. But, you know, then we're going to look at everything else, and if there's anything that's absolutely spectacular, you know, we might want to have a conversation about it.
John?
Mr. Chairman, earlier this week, one of the days was a recognition of the opening of the Oklahoma territories, when they announced that you could go and stake your ground. And Oklahoma, the nickname is Sooners because there were people who left before that and went out and staked their ground. I just throw that out because my question is there a need to announce to people that we are looking at trees and they are not to be a Sooner and cut down all the trees on their property or sell it to a developer before we tighten this up. I don't know if that would even be a problem, but there are some individuals around that, hearing what we were talking about, it would not surprise me if they said, well, we got to do something right away. Am I making any sense to what my concern here?
From the audience?
Lou,
Lou?
sorry.
Many years ago, I actually updated the tree ordinance for the town, and I looked at all the other towns, as input of getting the best we can and making sure we cover all the issues that are important. I think that maybe we should look at it from a different perspective. With the cost of housing so high, it's not unusual for $500,000 to $1 million or more for a house, even here in Bethany Beach. Perhaps if we only have a $500 fine per tree, that's chump change, So they say, all right, fine, I'll pay the fine. Maybe we should look at it from a different point of view because we already have in our code that you basically have to identify the trees. The only ones you can really take down are the ones that are in the footprint of the building. And the other ones have to be all identified, and a plan, it's right in there, a plan to set to replace them in certain sizes. So perhaps maybe we should think about, or the Planning and Zoning Commission think about, of increasing the fine for when you take down a tree and and make it a lot more than just $500. That's just a consideration.
I just wanted to respond to John's comment about notifying people in advance. I don't think you can enforce that. However, once the ordinance has been introduced, there's something called the pending ordinance doctrine, that even though it hasn't passed, people are put on notice, and then they're not supposed to go any further. The other thing I wanted to mention, following up on Scott's comment about Rehoboth, I think Rehoboth, I'd be wary about adopting theirs in full, because I know from reading the Cape Gazette over the years, it's led to a lot of litigation and a lot of bad feelings among neighbors. There was one case I remember where the neighbor wanted to take down the tree because it was threatening the house, and the neighbors put up such a fuss they wouldn't let him take down the tree even though it was harming his house. So, I mean, there's a lot there. They have some good things, but I'd be wary about adopting theirs. I think it goes overboard in some cases.
Yeah, I don't think we were.
No, I agree.
I don't think we were talking about word for word. But if they've gone to the effort to do that, then we could use that as a plate, base plate, to come up with our own. I know even in my house, my insurance company 2 years ago said, you have to take those limbs off that tree or you're not going to be covered. We're not going to write your insurance. And I took them off, and 3 months later, they built a new house next to mine, took the whole tree down. So it was only $900.
Mike, just as a follow-up, when we did update our tree ordinance, I actually looked at the Rehoboth.
You did?
I did, yeah. I looked at all the towns around us, and I actually, took sections out of their code to put it in our code. So that, unless they've updated it since, which is possible, but that part of that stuff is already in our code, because before we had literally nothing in there. So.
Good.
Lou, do you still have your files from when you did this?
I might. I'm not sure. Yeah, we're talking about a long
I
time
know
ago.
it was a long time ago, but,
You were just graduating.
right.
So something Kathy just said, got the marbles bouncing around in my head there. One of the things I was thinking is actually Kathy's neighborhood is a pretty good example of a developer being originally sensitive to what the character of that neighborhood was, right? So if you walk through there's still lots of mature trees. It feels like a place where somebody didn't just come clear cut the whole property. And as she was talking, I was lamenting the fact that most people don't look at and can think about or care about the character of the neighborhood that they're building a house in. They just come clear cut it and plop down whatever thing that the developer has as a plan they've built 3 or 4 times already before with no relationship to the lot. We're not going to change the way that people think about this kind of stuff, right? That's kind of ingrained in our system at least. But what we could do, and this goes to what Kathy was saying about like, what, you know, how do you get in the minds of the developer, is we could have a combined ordinance and best practice document, right? So you could have an ordinance that just says, just sketching something out here, you can take down the trees that are within your buildable footprint, and then any trees outside of that that you're going to take down, you have to get a tree survey that shows any tree over 8 inches in diameter, for instance, and any tree you're going to take down outside your buildable footprint, you have to replace in kind or something, right? It can be as simple as that, and it can be tied with an increased fine for doing it ahead of time. But then it could also be combined with a best practice document, which could list things like seek the counsel of an arborist, attempt to design a house that takes takes the minimum amount of trees necessary. So what that looks like when we, in my office, do that, is we start with a tree survey on any wooded lot, and we're gonna ask the surveyor to give us every tree over 8 inches in diameter. Then we're gonna go out there and try to find which ones are healthy or not healthy, take down the ones that aren't healthy, and then try to identify a buildable footprint within that lot. That's obviously easier to do on lots that are 10,000 square feet or more. On a 5,000 square foot lot, you're going to get kind of hemmed into to the buildable area. But from there, we let the lot and the trees and all of that stuff kind of tell us what the house should be, rather than let the 40-foot by 75-foot buildable area tell us we're going to put the biggest, dumbest box we can put on that property. So it's possible, say for everyone here, but especially the 3 architects here, to like kind of sketch out what that process might look like and put that into a sort of best practices, kind of pamphlet, sort of like what we have for the non-residential design review, that just says this isn't, you as a homeowner are not required to follow this, but we're encouraging you to follow this, and your neighbors are already following this, and like that sort of positive pressure gets people to think a little differently. But we have like sort of that combined with the teeth of, here's a specific ordinance, you have to meet these minimum requirements for any residential lot.
My recollection is that we did something similar to that when we were talking about bulk density. We had the pictures of like the fronts of houses that showed if you varied things and all. And it was, we didn't call it best practices, I don't think, but it was a guideline if people. Acceptable, unacceptable. Right.
Yeah,
And
that's right, you did
so,
that, yeah.
Scott, we could fashion, I would hope, something similar to that in this effort here. And that wouldn't bother you, right, Susan?
No, it wouldn't, no. But I think we were talking about best practices when we were talking about plants and landscaping. And it could something could be developed.
Yeah.
That put all that, I'm not a good plant person, but somebody could
Yeah.
put
And-
something together that gives homeowners some ideas on what would work and what's from this area and everything.
Yeah, and the difference between bulk density is enforceable. It's these are the requirements, and that thing is illustrating how you kind of wrap your head around what the sort of sliding scale of what you're trying to do. This wouldn't be, in my mind, it wouldn't be enforceable necessarily, because it would be, hey, we're trying to encourage you to do something a little different here if you just think outside the box. But if you're not going to think outside the box, then this part is enforceable. You have to, at a minimum, do this.
I think it'll tie in with permeable, what you can pave. It's all taken care of, whatever's not that building anymore. So we have landscaping, we have ground covering, which is permeable or non-permeable. The big thing is pools, if they're going to have a pool, they're going to have to rearrange where landscaping is and everything. So I think it all kind of ties into how these lots are functioning without just saying, okay, you can put a house on it.
I just have one question. Do we have any idea when they do level the lots, how many trees would have been diseased anyway?
Would have been what?
Diseased. I mean, I know when they did the park, that most of the trees that they took down needed to be gone.
No, there's no record of
Okay.
what was on there. We can, they can, or we can create a record from photographs of trees, but whether they were healthy or not, I don't know.
Okay. We have a list of plants that we're dealing with. Did you deal with that last month?
Didn't we, refresh my memory, but at our last meeting, didn't we, and Susan, you bring up, there was already a list of invasive species that are prohibited by the Delaware State Code or something?
That was in February, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Lourdes, and they gave me the list that as of July 1st, and I think Kathy already sent it to us too, that what the state of Delaware is prohibiting to sell or trade. And it goes into effect this July. And then he also gave me some, he has other ones that they will not plant too. So he said he would give us more, that list too. So there's a whole list on the website, and also, there's 37 on the list,
But not,
not bamboo.
but not bamboo.
No, no. No, it's not on the list.
I recommend we put bamboo on the list. Yeah, well, I remember, I wasn't here in March, but in February, we had that discussion, I thought. In 2006, it was up for discussion, it got to the council says, oh, yeah, we'll probably do that, and then one of the council members said, well, wait a minute, we've got this one type of bamboo, and the person was supposed to study that, and it got lost in the mire and never came back for action, is that correct? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay secret here. That it never came back, so I don't think the council acted on it. Am I correct in my recollection?
Yes.
Holy mackerel.
I think they're still studying it.
16 years, 18 years later. I think my comments from February were add bamboo. And I don't really care whether it's okay or not okay, I just say bamboo, because that can be, as we all know, that can really, you can't get rid of it, you just, no matter what. So, unless we have a zoo with pandas or something, and that's not gonna happen, so.
Yeah, we can get a panda.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to see how destructive bamboo is, just walk down the Assawoman Canal, and there's a property there that has bamboo. And it's on both sides of the walkway. And it's actually, once it's established, well established, it will go wherever it wants to go. And it's almost impossible to get rid of it.
You know, and near a canal, destroy the banks. Just eat it, yes. So, I anticipate I'll be voting for bamboo to be added to that list. The only thing I think we have to be discuss, not worried about, but a lot of people do order plants and trees and over the internet. And, if you use a landscaper around here, they know what they can and cannot use, but boy, a lot of people just order anything, so I think we at least have to keep that in mind. I don't think we're gonna be running around Bethany checking the types of plants, but we might get complaints from somebody. And the only complaint I can see we get would be from bamboo, but other than that, okay. So, where are we, John? Bail me out here.
Well, my question now is, should we try to develop the specific list for inclusion in somewhere in our code, or should we by reference to whatever the state has done, just say, the following are prohibited as per the state of Delaware, but add bamboo ourselves. I mean, to me, going forward, incorporating it by reference, to me, is better than making a specific list, because that specific list may change over time. And if we have it in there, then we've got to go back and do it. But if we were to incorporate by reference what is prohibited, and then add or include any that we specifically want, and the only one at this point is bamboo, and in deference to the property owner from 2007 who objected because they said it was a beneficial one, it would at least, as this goes forward, if that property owner still has that concern, an opportunity for that property owner and others to make their concerns known. Seems like a pretty fair way to me.
Well, it is, because then, you know, we make a recommendation to the town council, and if the town council decides the property owner is correct, and bamboo is in. But that's, you know, it's just a recommendation, so I think that's how it works. So I agree, I tend to agree with you, John, that by reference is a great way to do it. That way, I assume the state looks at this stuff all the time.
I have a copy of the actual code that
the state?
that'll go into effect in July of 2022.
Oh,
It does list the various invasive species, but John has a good point, and I thought about it too, that would we have to keep updating it? Or do we, I don't know how to deal with that.
But
I
you
like
could-
John's idea.
Yeah,
I mean, you could incorporate by whatever the statute is
right,
into ours to say, in accordance with
Yep.
the following, those are precluded, and then add,
Is that already, does, the state must supersede us, don't they? Or not? If they prohibit
I would think it would.
these plants,
For
doesn't that supersede anything we do? So it's
Yeah, yeah.
already there, so it's,
Yeah.
this is really just a matter of information
Right.
that, all right, if you want to know what you can't do, go there. So that's already there, I guess. But I like the idea of just reinforcing it for people to be able to read it.
Now, I think the other problem is a lot of people don't know what these are. They need to have the education, because people have homes other places and they like the plants they have and they just bring it. I mean, with us too, I mean, what is it, the orange daylily is prohibited. Well, I brought some from home. I mean, fortunately, the deer keep eating it down, so we don't have a problem with it. But I mean, but that's just what happens. People have their favorite plants and they need to, make their yard look, beautiful, and they like what they had before, and they just bring it down and plant it.
Mr. Chairman, the problem of not saying something, in other words, I think we should think about, by reference, including the specific section of the Delaware Code.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, that's good.
Okay,
That's what, I said, it's there, let's just make sure they know it by putting it in.
right, because if you don't, people will say, well, nobody told me.
But we could educate on the website. I mean, there has to be some way, I guess we can. We have to have some way to let people know
I think John is saying put it in our code
code.
and say it, refer to it in whatever section is appropriate.
Okay.
We talked last time too about like a best practices page for
That's a
residents
good
where
one.
it was
Best
sort of front and
practices would be
center,
perfect, yes.
where they're not burying themselves in the code, which they're probably not looking at before they go to the garden center. So maybe that
Yeah.
plays into some of the other discussion too of, it could be a link to the code, it could be just, other things like that.
That's almost, I mean, that's a great idea, you guys, have to have a best practices section that people could just pull it up and it would show the various codes and regulations that really you don't go looking for. Most people don't read our code, except for the architects and the engineers, they'll read it. And just have like a little pamphlet or something like that. That's a great idea. Maybe that's almost a separate item that we could discuss when we run out of things to do. When we run out of things, sorry. My shoulder, don't get in.
There's also, I came across a Center for the Inland Bays had and I sent it along to Mark, that also could be put in this best practices section of what to do and what to do, not to do when planting, that sort of thing. This, I think, is more of a, as it says, the purpose of this chapter is to prohibit invasive species at their point of sale or delivery into the state. I don't think they're looking into going after
No.
the individual that brings hostas down from Bethesda or whatever, but it's more to go after the garden centers and those folks. But still, it's a point of reference. And
Yeah, I think that you're right, Kathy. I don't think we're going to go after
right.
individuals
No, you're not
other
gonna-
than
You're not going to find,
commissioners,
that's right. You're not going to find them.
except for bamboo. And, but
Believe me,
That's
I'll never again.
well, I'll try to remember. Yes, probably, because I just can't lean in.
You just clip that like right on your collar, and then this can just sit here and just turn. Yeah, I turned it off. Let me do it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't do
yeah,
it either.
You are such a prima donna.
I know. It's tough getting old and having your shoulder replaced.
Now you can see me.
Yeah. Okay. Very good discussion. Now, I guess have we finished with A?
What's that? Is-
If I was a comedian, I say then we can go to number 2. It's labeled B, so. Okay, I think that was very good discussion by all, and I do thank the mayor and the vice mayor for helping us on this. Very nicely
Chairman?
done. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No interrupt.
When do we anticipate sort of pulling all of this together and?
Good question. Well, it's going to be on the next agenda, so that'll be May. And if we look at the tree stuff from Rehoboth, and if Lou has anything, but, or comment, yeah, Lou, you can just comment there, if you want to, if you don't have anything. And I think the prohibited plants may be, for the most part, done for us. So if we can bring it all together next month, that would be what I would like to shoot for, if we can. Anybody have a suggestion, or other than that? I mean, from the chair, that's what I would hope to get done. So you just wait. But by pull it together, I mean, have it in final draft form so that in June, we can transmit it to the council. Okay? Any other questions, statements? Okay. B, continued discussion of the Green Bethany Initiative. Scott, are you in charge of that?
Yeah, which is why it hasn't gone anywhere. So actually, I think hopefully B will be relatively quick, but I think actually all of the things that we've been doing are tied into this Green Bethany Initiative. What I think Mark and I have ventured to get together to review it and usually because I'm on a deadline that hasn't happened, but I think what we should be looking at is kind of packaging all of the stuff up that we have done and are doing. So pervious surfaces, tree protection, invasive species, electric car charging, things like that. Package that up into a sort of kind of a, I don't know, some little document or paragraph that talks about what we're accomplishing. So, what we're accomplishing and what we're setting out to accomplish. So, I don't have much to discuss about it other than that is the goal, I think, right now.
Good. Any good?
I just add, I think as looking back through notes, I think there's a few items that fall into more of the comprehensive plan bucket of recommendations that come out of that, is where this conversation, I think, started from a few months ago. So I think there's two buckets there of work that we could roll into now, and then maybe those recommendations that have to go into, or we have to review, and then maybe go into that plan for the 10-year approach.
Okay. Good. Do you have
So if
something
anybody
you-
has ideas.
Mark,
for
did
some-
you have something you want specifically on the agenda for next month?
I think maybe if anyone has thoughts or ideas, we could just roll them into a working list and then discuss them. Happy to go that route, but
What do you want to call it?
so I think this Bethany initiative probably stays as the topic, and within there we have, as Scott mentioned, the things that are active or in process of approval, like the landscape and other changes that I think we could review, and then the sort of other bullet in that is what impacts the comprehensive plan.
Okay, well, we'll keep that then, obviously. So these two old business items will still be there.
No, Terry.
Oh, great.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So we have signed the contract now with IPA. That was signed at the end of last month, and they've begun doing work mapping, drafting, and formatting and getting some data collection and just checking back with us. In fact, I just had a conversation yesterday and got all the information that they're not quite sure about. So I'll be sending that out to the departments to get back. I think we haven't finalized a calendar, and this hasn't been run by the town manager, so I'm hesitant to mention it and then him want to change something. But we're developing a calendar, and you'll probably, I'm going to say sometime around July, we'll begin to meet with you all on a regular basis. Maybe we'll have, again, this has to be vetted through the town manager because but we'll try to set designated days to do just specifically that instead of tying up planning commission meetings with it. But
You're great,
So-
thank you.
so progress is being made. That's good.
Very good, thank you. I can't remember, what was the date they gave us, August or September?
It's August, but we were
August.
granted an extension until February, so that calendar will keep in mind that extension. So
Oh, I didn't know
yeah,
that, okay.
I think it was you were gone, and we just got the extension from the planning office, and that was great. It was very gracious of them to grant it so quickly. So yeah.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Well, the pressure's off, guys.
It's not off.
Okay. All right, so I think we finished with everything, and so what we're going to do is summarize a little bit. Susan's going to get us some tree information from Rehoboth. Lou, if he has his anything, he'll get that to us on trees. He'll get that also. Let's see. Can't read my own writing. We're going to continue to add the old business, which is trees, plants, and the Bethany initiative to the next meeting as old business. And Susan, you have a plan that's going to come on that project. Is that the next meeting? Two plants?
There's two applications.
I'm lost. Next month, we have two applications.
Right,
One is for the minor subdivision,
right.
and one is for the town, and that is to remove, that's the Walcheck Dermatitis property, where there are some interior lot lines that the town wishes to remove to make it one full parcel.
Okay. So that will be under new business for next month.
Yes, sir.
Okay, John?
Susan, please prepare the applicant that took the trees down for heavy weather.
I will contact
Tell
them.
them, batten down the hatches,
Monday.
prepare for heavy weather.
He's Coast Guard, guys.
Contact them on Monday, tell them it was discussed, and that you are looking prior to the meeting for them to submit, and what was existing there before, which they can if I can do it, they can do it, and for their plans for the future.
Yeah. And in a form that we can put up so that anybody watching overhead can see pictures of it? For them to do that. I don't know how they do that, but
Well,
I'm hoping.
I'm not sure, can we put, I'll talk to Will about that, and figure something out.
Okay, and if they can do something, because I'd like any,
Yeah, well, they can then, they can send it to me by email and we'll have it. And then we'll have the pictures, I can make screenshots of the site from Google Earth.
yeah, because, I would like
Yeah.
the people who are viewing this know, we've got the one picture there. but,
I can, do you want me to send this to you?
No,
mean,
I already looked at it online, and all you have to do is you just put the address in, and then you can Google Earth it, and you can go right down the block, and you can see.
No, I know, yeah,
But we can do that on here, or I can take and screen shoot it so that we have, like a
What, yeah.
PowerPoint.
right. Yeah, like I said, I like the people who are viewing the meeting to be able to see what we're talking about during our discussions. Because as John said, could be stormy weather. Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Move adjournment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. When's the next meeting? Late, right?
May
It'd be the
21st?
21st, yeah. Whoa. Very good.